Your liver is working right now, and you have absolutely no idea what it is up against. It processes every single thing you eat, every toxin you breathe in, every hormone your body produces, and it does all of this without sending you a single warning signal until the damage is already done. That's the terrifying part. Most people with a fatty liver feel perfectly fine. They wake up, they go to work, they eat their meals, and they have no idea that one of the most vital organs in their entire body is slowly drowning in fat, getting harder, getting more congested, and quietly failing them day by day. And what makes this even worse is that the advice being pushed everywhere online, on health websites, by well-meaning nutritionists, even in some doctors' offices, is filled with half-truths, outdated thinking, and recommendations that are actually making the problem worse instead of better. So today, I'm going to cut through all of that noise, and I'm going to show you what is actually happening inside your liver, why it gets congested in the first place, and which foods can genuinely support its recovery versus which ones are just marketing myths dressed up in scientific language. Because once you understand the real mechanism, once you see the actual biology, everything else is going to click into place and you are never going to look at food the same way again. Let's start with something that almost nobody talks about, and that is the concept of liver overwhelm. Your liver is not just one organ doing one job. It is performing over 500 different chemical functions every single moment of every single day. It is filtering your blood, producing bile, regulating your cholesterol, managing your blood sugar, converting nutrients, and neutralizing everything harmful that enters your body. Now here is the critical thing to understand. Most organs in your body share the workload with other organs and systems. But certain substances, and this is the key, certain substances can only be processed by your liver and your liver alone. When those substances flood in faster than your liver can handle them, it gets backed up. It gets overwhelmed. And when the liver is overwhelmed, it starts storing what it cannot process, and what it stores is fat. That is literally how a fatty liver is born. Not from eating fat, not from salt, not from red meat, but from overwhelming the liver with the specific things that only it can process. So the first question you need to ask is not what superfoods can heal my liver. The first question is, what am I pouring into my liver that it simply cannot keep up with? And the number one answer, the one that most people still do not fully appreciate even though we have decades of research on this, is fructose. Not sugar in general, although sugar is a major part of this, but specifically fructose. You see, regular glucose, the sugar that comes from bread and pasta and rice, can be used by every single cell in your body. Your muscles can burn it, your brain can burn it, but fructose is different. Fructose bypasses all of that. It goes directly to your liver and it can only be processed there. So when you eat 100 grams of regular table sugar, which is what the average person consumes on a daily basis without even realizing it, 50 of those grams are fructose heading straight to your liver with nowhere else to go. And if your liver is already busy, if it is already dealing with other stressors, that fructose is going to pile up and it is going to be converted into fat and stored right there in the liver tissue itself. Now here's where people go wrong. They hear this and they think, fine, I will stop eating candy and soda, but I will eat a lot of fruit because fruit is natural, and natural means safe. And that reasoning feels logical, but it is deeply flawed. Because the fructose in a mango does not have a different molecular signature than the fructose in a candy bar. Your liver does not read labels. It does not care if the fructose arrived on a silver platter of organic pineapple or in a gas station slushie. It processes it the same way. Now, a small handful of berries now and then is genuinely not a problem. Berries are low in fructose and high in fiber, and the total load is manageable. But downing bowls of tropical fruit and drinking fresh juice every morning while thinking you are healing your liver is a mistake. And it is a mistake that a lot of well-intentioned people make every single day. Now let's talk about insulin, because insulin is the silent co-conspirator in all of this, and yet it gets almost no attention in most conversations about liver health. When you eat foods that spike your blood sugar, your pancreas releases insulin to manage that sugar and shuttle it into your cells. That is normal and that is fine when it happens occasionally. The problem is when it happens all day long. When your diet is full of starches, grains, processed carbohydrates, and sugars, your insulin levels stay chronically elevated. And insulin is fundamentally a storage hormone. Its job is to store things, to put things away, to keep your body in a building and accumulating state rather than a burning and releasing state. So when your liver is already accumulating fat from fructose overload and your insulin is chronically high on top of that, you now have a liver that cannot burn its stored fat even if it wants to. The insulin is essentially locking that fat inside the liver cells and throwing away the key. This is why people can change their diet in small ways and see almost no improvement in their liver health. Because unless you actually lower insulin levels significantly, the liver cannot enter the fat-burning mode it needs to be in to recover. The two problems feed each other in a vicious cycle, and breaking that cycle requires understanding both pieces simultaneously. Now let's talk about the foods that genuinely support liver health, and I want to be very clear about something before I go any further. There is no food on earth that functions like a medication for your liver. There is no berry, no root, no ancient grain, no exotic seed that you can add to an otherwise damaging diet and watch your liver miraculously recover. That is not how biology works. What we are talking about are foods that reduce the burden on your liver, foods that lower insulin, foods that provide the specific nutrients your liver needs to run its detoxification processes, and foods that are minimally inflammatory and easy for a sensitive system to handle. With that framing in place, let's talk about what actually deserves a place on your plate. Cruciferous vegetables are genuinely remarkable for liver health, and not because of some vague antioxidant story you hear repeated everywhere, but because of a very specific and well-documented mechanism. Plants like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, arugula, bok choy, and kale contain specific phytocompounds, chemicals produced by the plants themselves, that directly activate detoxification pathways inside liver cells. These pathways are how your liver neutralizes and eliminates harmful substances from your body, and they require very specific molecular inputs to function efficiently. These cruciferous vegetables provide exactly those inputs. They are essentially handing your liver the tools it needs to do its job better. And because these vegetables are very low in sugar and starch, they are doing all of this without adding any burden of their own. You can eat generous amounts of these vegetables, and the only caution is if you have a personal sensitivity to them, which some people do, and if so, you need to listen to your body. But for most people, loading up on cruciferous greens is one of the most genuinely supportive things you can do for a struggling liver. Omega-3 fatty acids deserve attention too, but with a critical nuance that most sources completely skip over. The omega-3s that are actually useful, the ones with documented mechanisms for reducing liver inflammation and improving metabolic function, are called EPA and DHA. These are found in fatty fish, in high-quality fish oil supplements, and in pastured eggs. Now here is where the confusion begins. Flax seeds are constantly promoted as a great source of omega-3s, and technically that is true, they do contain omega-3s. But the type of omega-3 in flaxseed is called ALA. And ALA has to be converted by your body into EPA and DHA before it becomes useful. And that conversion rate is poor in healthy people and even worse in people who are metabolically compromised. So the very people who most need omega-3 support are the ones least capable of converting flax into the form they actually need. This is not a reason to panic, it is a reason to be strategic. Get your omega-3s from fish or from a clean, high-quality supplement, not from flaxseed alone if liver recovery is your goal. Eggs are something I want to spend a real moment on, because they are almost never mentioned in liver health discussions, and that omission is a serious mistake driven by decades of outdated fear around cholesterol. Eggs are one of the most nutrient-dense foods that exist. They are rich in high-quality protein, in essential fatty acids including EPA and DHA when sourced from pastured hens, and in a collection of B vitamins including B6, B9, and B12 that play a critical role in a process called methylation. Methylation is how your body converts a harmful inflammatory compound called homocysteine into useful protective molecules including glutathione, which is your body's most powerful internally produced antioxidant and one of the primary tools your liver uses to neutralize toxins. But the most underappreciated nutrient in eggs is choline. Choline is a vitamin-like compound that acts as a catalyst for fat metabolism inside the liver. It is directly involved in the process of packaging and exporting fat out of liver cells. A choline deficiency, which is startlingly common, is directly linked to fat accumulation in the liver, and eggs are one of the best dietary sources of choline available. 2 or 3 eggs in a morning is not a risk to your heart health, despite what you may have been told for years. It is an investment in your liver, your brain, and your metabolic function all at once. Meat, particularly unprocessed red meat from quality sources, belongs on this list for similar reasons, and it is almost never mentioned in conversations about liver health because of the lingering, largely debunked fear of saturated fat. Real, unprocessed beef is packed with methionine, an amino acid your body uses to produce glutathione. It is rich in zinc, B12, and iron in highly bioavailable forms that plant sources simply cannot match. And contrary to what you might have heard, the fat in meat is not the enemy here. Roughly half the fat in beef is monounsaturated, the same type found in olive oil, and the saturated fat present is chemically stable, non-reactive, and does not drive the kind of oxidative damage that processed vegetable oils do. The real enemy was never the fat on the steak. It was the inflammatory oils used to fry it, the refined bread it was served on, and the sweetened sauces poured over it. Strip those away, and what you have is a nutrient-dense, low-insulin, genuinely liver-supportive food. Nuts, especially walnuts, macadamia nuts, and pecans, are worth including in this conversation because they are low in carbohydrates, satisfying, rich in healthy fats and minerals, and they keep insulin levels stable. Extra virgin olive oil, pressed cold and minimally processed, provides monounsaturated fat and polyphenols that are anti-inflammatory and gentle on the liver. And coffee, while not a magical cure, does appear to have a genuine association with reduced liver stress in multiple large studies. Most researchers think this is partly because coffee drinkers tend to drink less soda and sweet beverages, and partly because certain compounds in coffee may mildly support liver enzyme function. Just don't make it sweet and don't think of it as treatment. Think of it as a pleasant addition to a genuinely clean eating pattern. And that brings me to the single most important thing I can leave you with today, because all of this information, every food I have mentioned, every mechanism I have explained, only matters if you understand the bigger picture. No food heals you in isolation. What heals a fatty liver is reducing the overwhelming burden that caused it to get congested in the first place, lowering your fructose load, stabilizing your insulin, removing processed and oxidized oils, and then giving your body the specific nutrients it needs to run its recovery processes efficiently. Your liver has an extraordinary capacity to regenerate. It is one of the only organs in your body that can actually rebuild damaged tissue. But it cannot do that while it is still drowning. You have to remove what is hurting it first. Then you support it with what helps it, not the other way around. Stop looking for the one food that will fix everything and start asking what I need to stop doing that is making this worse. Because the answer to that question, not any superfood list, is where real healing actually begins.